Ladies and gents, please follow Phoebe and Emma.
Hug.
It is my pleasure to be next. So please, a round of applause for my collaborator, Morten Langeland. That's enough. Please don't do too much. It is not really a duo collaboration. I cheated and changed tone somewhat. We have a third collaborator, a very special person here tonight, Ingvar, otherwise known as Adam. Please, a round of applause for Adam. So Morten and I felt, I think it is fair to say, that there is such a thing as too much poetry, and perhaps we should take a step back and do something more in keeping with the Jorvik Centre's educational mission. And always, both Morten and I want to do something that responds to the place and how special it is. So what we decided to do, thanks to an online author entitled Jenny Cohen, is read to you a series of surprising facts about the Vikings, and then pass them through a smell test in our resident Viking. So, 10 things you may not know about the Vikings.
Explore 10 surprising facts about the seafaring Scandinavians.
Number 1.
Vikings didn't wear horn helmets. Forget almost every Viking warrior costume you've ever seen. Sure, the pugnacious Norsemen probably sported headgear, but that whole horn-fested helmet look? Painters seem to have fabricated the trend during the 19th century, perhaps inspired by descriptions of northern Europeans by ancient Greek and Roman chroniclers.
Ingvar, Adam, did the Vikings wear horn helmets?
Well, this myth may have come from certain Viking feasts where Vikings had a tradition of taking cornettos and jamming them onto their helmets. It's not true.
Oh, that's amazing. I've learned something already. Number 2. Vikings were known for their excellent hygiene. Between rowing boats and decapitating enemies, Viking men must have stunk to high Valhalla, right?
Right?
Quite the opposite. Excavations of Viking sites have turned up tweezers, razors, combs, and ear cleaners made from animal bones and antlers. Vikings also bathed at least once a week, much more frequently than other Europeans of their day. Adam, how clean were the Vikings?
Well, you're quite right about that. The Vikings were pretty clean compared to most other people in Europe. The Anglo-Saxons didn't always like this. There were complaints from Anglo-Saxons of them basically being too well-groomed, too nice-smelling, and finding it too easy to seduce Anglo-Saxon women.
I'm sure our Scandinavian poet visitors have had a similar experience.
The Vikings used a unique liquid to start fires. Clean freaks though they were, the Vikings had no qualms about harnessing the power of one human waste product. They would collect a fungus called touchwood from tree bark and boil it for several days in urine. The sodium nitrate found in urine would allow the material to smolder rather than burn. So Vikings could take fire with them on the go.
Adam, Ingvar.
Agree, Ingvar?
This is absolutely true. Urine is an incredibly useful substance that we generally these days just tend to throw away. But people in the past, and certainly the Vikings were amongst them, used to find many uses for it, and this was one of them.
It's fascinating.
It doesn't go too well with the hygiene, I think.
No, you would think so.
Paradox.
But if anyone is feeling the urge, then you have a use for that a little bit later. Number 4. Vikings buried their dead in boats. There's no denying Viking loved their boats. In the Norse religion, valiant warriors entered festive and glorious realms after death. Distinguished raiders and prominent women were often laid to rest in ships surrounded by weapons, valuable goods, and sometimes even sacrificed slaves. Adam Ingvar, did the Vikings bury their dead in boats?
They did. Some of the best preserved Viking ships that we have are from Viking burials, where very high status people were buried in ships. Very hard to dig a hole deep enough for an entire ship, so they tended to stick a burial mound over the top of it, but they couldn't always stick someone in a ship. It's quite an expense to stick someone in a boat. It might seem a waste of a boat, so sometimes they simply marked the ground with the shape of a boat, rocks arranged to create that outline.
Do you think if one of us in this room wanted to do a Viking funeral, it would be feasible in contemporary Britain? Just your personal opinion. 'Cause I'm interested.
You might have a bit of trouble getting that done these days.
Yeah, you're right.
This next one seems false, I think. Viking women enjoyed some basic rights. Viking girls got hitched as young as 7 and had to mind the household while their husbands sailed off on adventures. Still, they had more freedom than other women of their era, as long as they weren't thralls. Viking women could inherit property, request a divorce, and reclaim their dowries. What's dowry?
It's like the money you get if you marry the woman's family.
Reclaim their dowries if their marriages ended.
Ingvar, was there progressive gender rights in the Viking world?
Well, everything you said there is true. I wouldn't necessarily say that the Vikings were brilliant at progressive gender rights, as you say, but it is true that Viking women had some rights that women in other cultures at the same time didn't have.
Impressive.
Yeah, relatively impressive. Number 6, Viking gentlemen preferred being blonde. Conformed to their culture's beauty ideals, brunette Vikings, usually men, would use a strong soap and with a high lye content to bleach their hair. In some regions, beards were lightened as well. It's likely these treatments also helped Vikings with a problem far more prickly and rampant than mousy manes, head lice. Adam, do the staff here at Jorvik have a problem with head lice?
I can't speak for everyone. Max, you know?
What?
Yeah, Max is riddled with head lice, so we all stay away from him. But apart from him, no, we're okay. But it is true that the Vikings used a soap that had a high concentration of lye, a very strong alkaline, which would get rid of head lice, and it would strip the colour from the hair. But it did have a negative effect. It can make your hair far more brittle. So, yeah, probably best generally to just stay natural.
It's always good advice to stay natural. Please, a round of applause for Adam.